Hello, hello. How's everybody doing? Happy Thursday. Today, we are ranking all the Straw Hats. And I've also added a few people we might not think of as the Straw Hats when we say the Straw Hats right now. But we'll get to that in just a second. So, as you can see, because I am a very great boy, I've also added people who we might not think of as Straw Hats, but in my mind are 100% Straw Hats. So we have obviously Vivi, who is like 300% a Straw Hat. We have Momo, who essentially also got accepted into the Straw Hats. And we have Yamato, who too was essentially accepted into the Straw Hats, right? And then of course we have all the others. I feel like we should just go the order they joined in, right? Let us jump in. So first off, we of course have our Captain Boy, Straw Hat Luffy, right? Before I do, what are we even ranking them on, right? Because I know a lot of people will have a lot of opinions. I just want to get this clear. So how I'm ranking them is basically my overall thoughts on the character, right? So it's not who has the best story, it's not who has the best backstory, it's not who has the coolest ability, it's not who looks the coolest, it's just everything, right? Just everything about them all at once, right? And because of that, I feel like my rankings might surprise a few people. And that is why I want to start with Luffy. Because obviously, we are talking about the big straw boy, right? I think most people would want to put him S tier. That said, because I like a few of the characters a bit more in terms of their personalities, for me, Luffy is actually only going to be an A tier. Obviously, his story, I mean, it's the most written, it's the one we followed, and Luffy is just a really, really, really good character, right? He has cool abilities, his personality is wacky and interesting, he has an incredible dynamic with basically anybody he meets, whether that's villain or whether that's friend, basically everyone, okay? But when it comes to his personality, I just like a few people better, right? I'll just say that. You'll see which ones. I think if you've been following the series for a long time, you might have a pretty good idea of who I'm talking about. But let's leave that in the air, right? So Luffy takes a solid A tier, which does hurt my heart a little bit, because I would love to put him S tier. I'm not gonna lie. I love Luffy, I love everything about him. But you know, that is how tier lists work. Speaking of tier lists, I am going for a somewhat normal distribution, right, in terms of the rankings. Luffy is the perfect protagonist for this story in particular. I see him as an S tier, but I can see why people don't have him there. Anything below B is just blasphemy. 100%. That's why I'm saying. I would normally put Luffy S tier, but just because of some personalities on here, they hit a little bit closer to home, right? Luffy is a bit too wacky. Like, if I had Luffy as a friend, right? Luffy would just be a little bit too wacky to be a very good friend. That's just my personal thing. Alright. Let's move on to... My cat is just breaking everything at this point. Let's move on to Zoro, right? So, our vice captain. Where does Zoro rank? And all of you know that I like Zoro a lot. I like his vibe. I like that he is generally just super chill about everything, right? Until he gets into a fight, and that's when he's like... He is sort of very similar to Luffy, but very different at the same time, right? And with Zoro, obviously, I mean... He uses 3 swords. That's badass, right? I'm not gonna lie, I much prefer Zoro's fighting style over Luffy's. Luffy's gears and all that are cool, but I've always liked swords more than hand-to-hand combat, right? That's just my own take. That said though, as an overall character, because I feel like Zoro can be a little bit one-note at times, and because we haven't really had a lot of development with him, and I think Wano actually soured me on his character even more. And yes, heads up, if you are not caught up with the manga, if I accidentally spoil something, click off. I don't know what I'm going to say. I might mention something in the manga accidentally. So, be warned. Be warned. So what soured me on Zoro's character is mostly the lack of development we saw with him, right? Especially after Thriller Bark, I sort of got the assumption that Wano would be his sort of big comeuppance, right? Which in some cases it was. In some cases it was. I don't think... I know a lot of people really disliked Zoro in Wano and that he didn't get, like, what they wanted. To me, I feel like he got enough spotlight, especially early on. But, I don't know. I feel like there could have been a bit more, right? Especially because we've had arcs like Whole Cake Island, which was, like, 300% focused on Sanji. And we got to see so much about Sanji. With Zoro, there's still a lot we don't know about him. I mean... we still have only seen one flashback with him, essentially. So, I just want to know more about Zoro. I love Zoro, but to me, his character as a whole will rank just below Luffy. Just below Luffy. So still a top tier character, but a little bit. I'm looking forward to seeing what Zoro does in the final saga, though. I feel like he's still one of the Straw Hats that is bound to get a lot of development. Zoro would be sleeping and lost all the time. I love the gag, by the way. Like, the fact that Zoro just sleeps through everything, shows up, uses, like, the most over-the-top sword technique of all time, gets drunk, and then falls asleep again. That's a fun character. Wano should have been what Whole Cake Island was for Sanji. 100% agree. 100% agree. Alright, next up. We have Jimbei. I feel like we should just go the order they joined in, right? Alright, next up, we have Jimbei. So this is our most recent Straw Hat? Like, official Straw Hat, I suppose. Jimbei is an interesting case for me. Because with Jimbei, technically speaking, we haven't spent a lot of time with him. But Jimbei, to me, kind of gives Uncle Iroh vibes. He seems like an older, wiser, and a balancing force among the Straw Hats, right? And I feel like going into the final saga, I will like Jimbei a lot more, and I feel like we're going to find out a lot more about him as well. Now that I'm starting to think about everyone else that will come afterwards, where do I put Jimbei? I kind of want to put him super high, because I really like him. Without Jimbei, Luffy would have probably changed a lot. I feel like Jimbei did knock some sense into him in post-war, and I feel like, again, going into what we're going into now, the world is just going to become more uncertain. I mean, we've already kind of seen that with Vivi, right? When they heard the news. And I feel like Jimbei will be the balancing force moving forward, because a lot of the other Straw Hats tend to be a little bit over the top. And Jimbei is gonna be, you know, like, guys, chill out. We've got our own stuff to do. People can take care of themselves. I'm going to put Jimbei in B tier. Maybe I'll move him up. Maybe not. Who knows? Also, his Fishman Karate is awesome. I absolutely love his water-based combats. And I really hope that they will actually, like, leverage it and then connect it with the other Straw Hats even more. That's something I really want to see again. I want to see all of the Straw Hats take on a single enemy again. I absolutely love that in Thriller Bark. That's still one of my favorite things about Thriller Bark. Give us a giant sea monster and have him fight, like, everyone at the same time, and have Jimbei be that supporting role that makes sure Luffy doesn't drown. Yes. Give me that. Jimbei has that big brother grandpa vibe. His relationship with Luffy is such a delight to me. 100%. And Jimbei is another one of those characters that I feel like meshes incredibly well with someone like Robin, with someone like Chopper. Because they have that more like balanced way of looking at things, right? This is why you don't stream after you've woken up at 5 a.m. Remember how I said we're going to go in order that they joined, and we just jumped from Zoro to Jimbei? It's fine. Let's do Vivi next. We're not doing the order they joined in anymore. Don't worry about it. I just saw Jojo in the corner of my eye, and I was like, oh my god, it's Jojo. I'll read that in a second. So, Vivi. We got a lot of focus with her in Alabasta. But aside from that, we don't really know much. It is looking like she's going to come back into the big story in a big way, it seems like. I know a lot of people think that she is Uranus. I have a little bit of that as well. A little bit of that suspicion. Or at least she is in some way connected to Uranus. In terms of her role among the Straw Hats, I feel like early on, it was kind of simplistic. I feel like Vivi's role was all about Alabasta, which worked perfectly fine in the story at that time. But of course, compared to all the other Straw Hats which have now joined up full-time, they are much more complex in their dynamic. I feel like by default, I have to put her pretty low. Because I like her general vibe, and I like how we just sometimes get a check-in with her and that she's still following along with the Straw Hat story. But as of right now, I'm gonna have to put her C. I'm gonna have to put her C. Hopefully she comes back into the story and becomes an incredible character. I'm really, really looking forward to that. There's a lot to love about her, but there's just not enough for me to put her higher, honestly. Vivi has not really had much screen time since Alabasta, very true. Hopefully that is changing. It does seem like it will. Whether that is soon or not, I guess is yet to be seen. Vivi's story is actually badass. Infiltrating a secret organization that plans to overtake your country while being 14 is such a Chad move. Yes, very true. I kind of wish we would have gotten to see a little bit more of that, right? Because we got her flashback in Alabasta, which was super short. And it was with that dude. I don't remember what that dude was called. But we did get a brief flashback of her as a kid. But then we sort of cut to her already being in Crocky's organization, right? In Baroque Works. So I kind of hope we would have gotten to see just a little bit more of that. Next up, we have Usopp. All of you know that I've had a very, very long adventure with Usopp's character. If you've been following the series since the start, you'll know very well that for the start of One Piece, I did not like Usopp. I really did not like him, like at all. Something about him just never really clicked for me, right? I didn't see the gag with him. I thought he was sort of the weak link in the Straw Hats, and when he did something cool, it was like he did something cool, and then he fell right back into that, oh my god, I'm so scared, I'm gonna run away type vibe. And early on, I didn't really like it. I'm not gonna lie. I've said this a lot. But then, we got to Water 7. And there, I think everything changed. For the best. And after that, it was not over just yet, right? Because then we moved into post-time skip. And he got a really cool redesign, which I feel like he really needed, because his pre-time skip design was so boring. He was just wearing like brown overalls 24/7. His post-time skip redesign was awesome. He got a really, really cool weapon, and then he became a god, right? He became our first god of the crew. I love Usopp. I love Usopp. This might come as a surprise to many, but for me, Usopp ranks up there with Zoro. I'm not even kidding. Like, Usopp, at this point in the story, is an absolute legend. I love Usopp. And the fact that they now tag team all enemies, like with Chopper and the tank from Franky, that is just perfect. I feel like Usopp's development throughout One Piece is severely slept on by a lot of people. So many people roasted me about my takes on Sanji. I should roast them back about them not saying Usopp's the best. I love Usopp, especially post-time skip. And I feel like me and Usopp would be pretty good buds. I feel like he has a bit of Sokka energy in the stuff he comes up with. And I love Sokka in Avatar too. So I'm probably a little bit biased there as well. I think it's intentionally he's too likable in the beginning. Yeah, I think so. I think in the beginning he is supposed to be a bit of a scaredy cat. I know that some people are still not even convinced that we are going to Elbaf, but I feel like if we are, Elbaf will 100% be like Usopp's story. I have a hard time thinking that it wouldn't. But at the same time, we saw Wano, right? So who knows? I really do hope so, that we do get to Elbaf. I really, really do. But even if we don't, Usopp for me still ranks as easy A tier. Moving on to our cat burglar, Nami. I really like Nami. I feel like Nami is another character that has undergone a lot of development, basically. Because this is like one of those things. I think I actually mentioned in the Whole Cake Island video as well. One thing that I feel like a lot of people forget with characters like Zoro and Nami is that Nami hated pirates. Zoro was a pirate hunter, and now both of them are pirates, which is like, you know, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. And with Nami, I mean, ever since she first joined up in Arlong Park, right, with that super messed up story, I feel like Nami has just gone up. Unlike some other characters, which we'll get to in a second. There's not really much for me to say about Nami. Nami's always been there. She's always been solid. I feel like for her strongest dynamic has always been with Luffy. Maybe because they are some of the first ones, I don't know. But I really enjoy seeing her. She comes up with a whole bunch of stuff, like in Water 7. Again, the whole money thing. That was some top-tier comedy. Oh, and oh boy, her moment in Wano, like the fact that she almost got killed, and she still wouldn't say that Luffy won't become the king of the pirates. Perfect. Perfect. She's one of the rare characters in Wano who I feel like actually got her moment to shine. Nami has aged super well for me. She's nowadays actually one of my favorite characters. Nami has always been up there, high up there for me. I feel like she's just not given a lot of screen time in a lot of cases, but when she is, she's usually really cool. And now that she also has Zeus, and she's probably going to just get more powerful with her weather shenanigans, I feel like she's just going to go up for me. So, for me, purely because of the amount of time she's been around and because I feel like her vibe with the other crewmates is just generally more developed, she will be top B tier for now. She does beat out Jimbei for me. We'll see whether or not I decide to switch it by the end of the stream. I love Nami, but I'd be a bit wary of her because she'll steal my money or somehow rip me off, lol. Very true. But imagine being on the right side of Nami, right? So she would just get you the best deals everywhere, and it'd be glorious. Remember Fishman Island, right? She made a deal, and they all got the entire store of clothes. Think about that. It might be good to have someone like Nami on your side. She can strike up the best deals, get you that bargain hunt, and because I myself enjoy a very good bargain hunt, I feel like we would get along very well. I feel like we would get along. Next up. Next up, we have Sanji. Where do we put Sanji? Fishman Island did Sanji dirty. I feel like Sanji did Sanji dirty. Like, I'm not gonna lie. With Sanji, like, there is so much I like about Sanji. Like, his fighting style is awesome. I might even prefer his fighting style to Luffy in some cases. Not in all cases. I'm curious to see Gear 5 more. But I really like Sanji's fighting style. Especially when he mixes it up. Like when we saw him using like capoeira and then he switches over to something entirely different. It's just really cool. Because, again, in another life, I myself took Taekwondo for a long time. So, I enjoy that. Also, I really like cooking. He's a cook. That's another thing that we have in common, right? I should be buds with Sanji. And generally, his vibe is really fun, right? Like in Wano with his little restaurant stand. I enjoyed that a lot. That was really fun. But then he does something weird. And for me, it's really as simple as that. He'd be one of those friends that I get along with, but every time he does something weird, I don't talk to him for a few days, right? Then we're kind of friends again. Then he does something weird again. And then I don't talk to him for a slightly longer time. And in a couple of months, I never talk to him. That's what I think me and Sanji would be. I know a lot of people get caught up with... I don't know why. Some people think that I'm offended by the trope of him, like, being super pervy or whatever. I just don't think it's funny, honestly. I know that it's a Japanese thing, but it just feels like the thirsty boys are being given too much screen time, I guess. Sanji and F for Foot. I could do that just to avoid ranking him and not having even more people get angry at me, right? That'd be the 300 IQ play. I just put him in Foot and not worry about it. Let's talk about Whole Cake Island real quick. Because a lot of people told me that, you know, Sanji gets worse, but then he gets better. I got to Whole Cake Island, and yeah, he did have a lot of great moments, obviously. I mean, I ranked the... If you haven't seen the video, let me spoil it for you. Whole Cake Island is S tier in my opinion. Mostly because of the Sanji stuff. The only things that dragged the arc down for me was everything to do with Big Mom and all that, right? So, Sanji-wise, the arc was incredibly strong. But it didn't really change Sanji, right? Because a lot of that was more so focused on his past. I don't really know. Sanji didn't become much better for me as people promised. I do think that he has a great payoff moment in Wano, where he asks for help. I think that is a very good moment for Sanji. That is fairly recent. Which I think ties up that whole Cake Island arc very well as well. Because obviously, Whole Cake Island, the whole premise is that Sanji wouldn't ask for help, and that he would sort of try to distance himself from the crew. But in Wano, when he's faced with someone really bad, he just says, "Please help me," right? And then Robin's like, "I'm so happy because you trusted me." That was really good. I really enjoyed that scene. So, that does move him up. That said, I think for me, he's still going to be C tier. As I've said many times, and I'll stop saying it, I promise. There's a lot to love about him, but I just want to close the book on the Sanji drama. He's not my favorite, and he probably will never be. Moving on to Momo, who is again someone who joined, but is not an official Straw Hat, I guess. And unfortunately, I'm not a fan of Momo. Momo and Luffy, when both of them are on screen, almost every single scene is incredible, right? Because Luffy obviously fulfills the older brother role, and that is super, super good. Like, every single scene where Luffy interacts with Momo is up there among my favorites. Like the scene in Zoro, where Luffy hands him his hand, and they're like, let's make a deal. That was very evocative of someone like Whitebeard, right? Passing down the mantle, and all that. And then in Wano, Momo and Luffy had a lot of very, very good moments. Even like post-Wano, the whole him just wanting to mess around like with Zoro and try to do his sword duel stuff, etc., etc., and being sad that they all left. Momo has a lot of good moments. I'm not talking about you, Momo. My cat is continuously staring at me every single time I say Momo. But yeah, overall, Momo is gonna go F tier. Like, I'm sorry. Momo's annoying and that's it. I mean, he's annoying a lot of the time, but so are a few of the characters, to be honest. I've mentioned this a lot, right? But I feel like one part of Oda's writing that I'm not a fan of is that some of the gags are repeated too many times, in my opinion, right? And I feel like that is the reason why I originally disliked Usopp, because him being scared was a little bit overdone. Then early on, Nami's sort of whole obsession with money, that was very, very common too, but has now been toned down. And basically, ditto for every single other character. So, I feel like that's the same thing with Momo, right? He is sort of obnoxious at times. He's also a bit of a creep. Just seems a bit weird. I haven't really mentioned that, but yeah, he's another weirdo. So, you know. Like the Brook, I don't want to... Yeah, exactly. The Brook joke too. That's been toned down, I feel like, too, thankfully. Because it's another one of those... I don't know what it is with anime, but like... I could make an entire video talking about this. I tried watching Classroom of the Elite, right? This is a story. A real quick tangent. I tried watching Classroom of the Elite. I watched like a few of the first episodes. I just could not take it seriously. The amount of fan service in that show, like every 15 seconds, I'm like, who is this show for? Right? I don't know. It's overdone. I don't get it. Let's move on to Tony Chopper. Alright. I mean, we all know where Chopper's gonna go, right? Let's be honest. All of you have seen the videos. All of you know that Chopper is incredible. I love Chopper. Every single scene Chopper is in makes me happy. He's easy F tier. I mean, S tier. Easy S tier. Easy S tier. I love everything about Chopper. I feel like we would be really, really good friends with Chopper. I feel like he'd be a solid buddy for me. And the fact that, like, every now and then, we get scenes of him just being on somebody's shoulder or something like that, that is so good. Like in Wano, we got the scene of him being in full armor and just sitting on Zoro's shoulder or something. And then we have the whole him and Law thing. His character, I know a lot of people say that he is too whiny or something. I can see that, but not for me. He is a lot of fun. He has an incredible dynamic with so many characters. I really, really like him. And his introduction arc, obviously, Drum Kingdom. You all know how I feel about Drum Kingdom. Oda. I know you're watching my stream. So let me remind you that Chopper does now have 3 hats. And he should keep those 3 hats. Because his Wano hat is incredible. He should keep it. He could use some more focus, but overall, he is just the most adorable thing ever. Also, he has the same voice actor as Pikachu. Honestly, that would probably be my only downside to Chopper. I feel like he has been a little bit over cutesified. I don't know if it's because of the art style or what, but Originally, I don't think his cuteness factor was such a big focus, whereas now I feel like they do lean into it a little bit more. Probably to sell merch, let's be honest. But still, I love Chopper. And his outfits are the best thing ever. With Luffy too, seeing Luffy in a suit in Whole Cake Island is still up there with my favorite moments in the series. Basically, anybody that has a super wide variety of outfits, that's just great. That's just great. And I feel like Chopper has very much had that. I mean, we see him in armor, we see him in a suit, we see him with a top hat. He's all over the place. And I love it. Another thing that has me really, really weirded out with Chopper, in Wano specifically, is that we never got any focus with him and the smile fruits. Seems like a bit of a weird thing, right? I think it would have made sense if he would have tried to cure them. I've said this a lot. I think we're going to get a not a post, but a return to Wano arc, and maybe that's going to get addressed there. I have really hopes for every Straw Hat in the last saga. I do too. I feel like we have so many people on the crew at this point, right? And I mean, if it's the last saga, then it's the last saga, right? There's not a lot of time left, and that has me worried. Hopefully the last saga is like 15 years long. Moving on to Franky. So Franky, for me, is a bit of a weird case. When Franky is alone, I don't really know what to think about him, right? I feel like Franky shines when he is with someone else. That's like my big thing with him. Because whenever, I mean, I said it before, right? But whenever we get the whole tank thing, and then Usopp is obviously like, oh my god, it's a giant robot, it's so awesome, and then Chopper is right there by their side, I feel like their trio is very, very good. But Franky on his own, we don't really see that a lot, except obviously for the separation specials. But I don't know. Franky on his own is a bit hit and miss for me. His fight in Dressrosa was obviously a high point. I really like the fact that he can change not outfits, but he can really change his hairstyles, right? And one thing that I've begun using a lot, I think that was in Dressrosa, is when he changed his hair into a cannon. So that is now my go-to image when I talk about headcanon. Because get it? It's literally headcanon. It's funny. Please laugh. Please laugh. So for me, Franky is going to probably be... I think I'm gonna put him... there... No... Actually, yeah. He's fine there. Or no... we'll see whether or not I move him around. He's fine there. Oh, and the fact that Franky got a JoJo moment, and he did the ora ora ora. Good. Alright. Next up, we have Brook. So Brook is a weird case for me. Brook is a really weird case for me. At this point, I don't even know what to think about Brook. I'll be honest. Brook is the most all-over-the-place character for me, in terms of how I feel about him. He got a lot of spotlight in Whole Cake Island. It's super fresh on my mind, because obviously I worked on the video recently, so I remember that very well. But I don't really think, aside from that, we've seen a ton of him. Because he wasn't present in Dressrosa. He didn't really do much in Wano. I don't really know. Because from Brook's introduction, he was obviously the musician, right? Which is another thing I wish they would do more. I wish they would leverage Brook's music more. I talked about this with Denny in one of our videos. I don't remember which one. Whichever one it was, I wish they would just have more Brook actually being a musician. We sort of see some of that in his fights, I guess. But I just want to see scenes of Brook playing music. You know? The crew just singing. It would be glorious. Again, I said that in the video. I just want to see us fade from like Brook playing an instrument into that being the episode's music. Or something like that. Just have that sort of transition. Avatar did that a lot, and I loved it. Brook's ability is incredibly cool, and I'm very, very curious about it. Brook's ability is one that actually might turn out to be the key to the whole Blackbeard and whole Big Mom thing. Again, I said this in Thriller Bark, and I've said it a lot, but the fact that he can literally interact with the underworld. Like, what? And the fact that he is seemingly immortal, too. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. And obviously, his connections to Laboon and a lot of that, and then his flashback. He has a very, very good story. But in the present story, I feel like he's super underutilized. I'm gonna put him above Vivi for now. Yeah, I'm gonna put him above Vivi for now. Mostly because he just had a lot more time. Other than that, I want to see more from Brook. I really do. We'll see whether or not that actually pans out. Hopefully it does. I really, really hope that his fruit is actually super important. It feels like it should be. There's got to be a reason why Oda wrote in something like coming back to life, right? I feel like something like that should be cool. Then we get to Yamato. Like Momo, our most recent Straw Hat that is a Straw Hat but didn't join. I really, really like Yamato. I really do. Their fruit power is awesome. I do feel like at this point we have too many mythical zones. Now that we know Luffy's is one, then with Kaido, then with Yamato, and then all the others we already know before, like Marco. I know people are super mixed on their character. I think their dynamic was really good. Honestly, I feel like the only reason why they stayed behind is because they know too much. That's frankly what I think. I feel like they were introduced, and then they were written to know a lot, and then they were written to know too much. And if they were to join the Straw Hats, they would be a walking spoiler. I feel like that's the meta reason why we haven't really seen them. But as their vibe, I feel like everything about them is super unique. And the fact that we got the whole flashback was so cool with Ace. And then the scene. I've talked about the scene a lot. But the fact that it is presumably the same Vivre card Ace later hands to Luffy. And then the whole scene of the hands and it's just burning up. Oh, so good. So good. Obviously, it benefits a lot from the super flashy animation. And then episode 1015, pure perfection. Because so far, I've loved seeing them, but obviously they haven't had a lot of focus because they are new. I'm going to put Yamato above Vivi. Yamaro's situation reminds me a bit of Jimbei. Sadly, I wasn't a fan of either one's handling. I feel like with Yamato, obviously, I think myself included, honestly, a lot of people sort of overreacted to the whole 180 of them staying behind. I 100% think they will join. The question is when. It does seem a bit whiplashy with Wano specifically, so I guess we'll have to wait and see. But in terms of like their abilities, their story, their connections to Wano, and everything else, Yamato is incredible. And in terms of their character design, it's super unique. It's super unique. Basically, Yamato cool, wanna see more. Lastly, we have Robin. I mean, I think you could tell by the number of people, right, where Robin's gonna go. Obviously, Robin is right up there with my boy Tony Choppa. Easy S tier. Easy S tier for Robin. Robin's character is incredible. I love everything about Robin. Her backstory, her story in the present story, her dynamic with Chopper, her dynamic with Jimbei, her dynamic with Luffy. It's so good. I feel like me and Robin would be very, very good friends. I feel like we would just nerd out about everything and anything while having a nice cup of coffee. That's all there is to say. Obviously, I've talked about it a lot, but for me, her dynamic with Chopper has always been a super high point for the series. Their whole playing board games and whatnot. I hope that's not going to go away now that we are entering the big part of the story and everything's going haywire. But yes, obviously, there is also the big question, which we still haven't really seen addressed. Vivi hasn't really talked about Robin being a part of the Straw Hats. And presumably she knows. So that's something interesting. I kind of want to see what her reaction was originally like about finding out why Robin ended up with the Straw Hats. And come on. The fact that Robin came up to Luffy, she didn't even actually talk to Luffy. She just popped up on the ship and was like, "Hey Luffy, you know what? I'm gonna join you." And nobody did anything. Everybody was like, okay. 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 And then she became an S tier character. Simple as that. If you ask me tomorrow, I might switch around Usopp and Nami, honestly. But I might also not. I feel like Usopp and Nami are essentially on par for me. But like this here, this is like locked in. As of Wano, as of chapter 1061, this is the ranking. Is it going to change? Most likely. All of you know that I'm very indecisive. I've said this in the videos before, but you do not know, you do not want to know how much time I actually spend thinking about where I'm going to rank the arcs. It's unhealthy, frankly. As for the ships, I mean, the ships, I have to be honest, the ships for me is, one is nostalgia clouded judgment, the other is just a ship. Honestly, I don't know where I'd put them. I feel like the Mary goes like A tier just because I am super nostalgic about it, and that's basically it. And the Sunny would probably go higher because I just feel like it's just more creative, right? The Sunny is just, it's a glorified weapon instead of a ship. So, in terms of the design, I'm going to be honest. I prefer the Going Merry about 50 times more than the Sunny. The Sunny reveal, I remember seeing it for the first time, and I thought it was a little bit too flashy, basically. Because the Going Merry was sort of low-key, right? It seemed like traditional, classic pirate shenanigans. The Sunny, though, the Sunny is Franky's creation. You can definitely see that. It might actually be fun to rank all the ships in the series. That might be pretty cool. Because there are a lot of very distinct ships, right? Obviously, Blackbeard's raft would take S tier, right? He's literally four pieces of lumber strung up with some rope he found. And that's apparently a fleet now. So, alright. That said, this is the finished ranking. I guess I'll leave it there. I'm looking at it now, and I just keep thinking, maybe I should switch something. Actually, if any of you want to fill this out, fill it out, tweet it at me. I want to see everybody's takes on the Straw Hats. And this goes for everybody watching on YouTube, too. If you're watching the video version, tweet me your tier list. Camera, stop autofocusing. Tweet me your tier list. I want to see how many people think that, rightfully, think that Robin and Chopper are the best. Because clearly they are. Alright, that said, have a wonderful weekend, have a wonderful Friday, and I'll see you whenever I see you. Alright, thank you for joining. Bye-bye.